Hey y'all, my name is Rebecca Ackley, and I interviewed a social worker named Deborah, but everyone calls her Debbie. And so the first question that I asked her was, why did you choose social work? And pretty much she just said that she just fell in love with the community. She started off as a nurse, but she really just wanted to obtain the tools and skills that she needed to be able to help out the community, and that's why she ended up going to social work, so she could gain those tools, so she could help her community. The second question is, where did you get your degree and what was your academic experience like? She got her degree at Baylor, and she was actually the second master's class to graduate there. And she said that her academic experience was really tough because at the time she was doing two different master programs, and master programs are already hard as there is, so I can't even imagine doing two at the same time. And she said that in the master's program there were two different paths that they could go down. They could go down working more with the community, and then they could go working with like families and stuff. And so she wanted to go towards more the community route because, she wanted to help the community. The third question was, what jobs have you held as a social worker and what was your least and most favorite? So the first job was working in a dialysis unit. She worked with older people, and she was in charge of just interviewing them and seeing exactly how they were doing, and it involved a lot of paperwork. The second job was working actually here in Barksdale with a program called Exceptional Family Member Program. And here she was in charge of interviewing families and gaining knowledge on any medical disabilities and stuff like that. Like if a kid had like a heart disease or stuff like that, because these families, the family member that was in the military was going to get transferred to a different base around the world, and not every single base around the world has the same medical people and medical assistance, I guess, that's needed. So for instance, if there was a kid that had, a heart disease and needed to be around cardiologists, not every base had cardiologists there, and so those bases would pretty much say like, no, this family can't come over here because we don't have the resources to make sure that their kid is safe, pretty much. And then the last job that she held was working in ministry, and working in ministry, she pretty much was just in charge of helping with projects and programs to help out different churches. So for instance, she came up with a program that was directed towards helping churches being able to meet the needs of families that have special needs children in them and whatnot. And now she works with girls ages 11 to 23, if I remember correctly, and just helping them get their stuff together. They're either pregnant or have kids. And so she said that her least favorite job was working in the dialysis unit just because of all the paperwork that went along with it. She's not a fan of the paperwork. And her most favorite job was the ministry side and all that she does. And technically the job that she does now is technically included in the ministry. And so the fourth question that was asked was, what do you currently do as a social worker? And so currently she works with girls ages 11 to 23, and she kind of helps get everything situated for them and their children. So she works on, social security stuff, birth certificate stuff. She helps the women sign up for childcare assistance if it's needed, or food stamps if it's needed. She's in charge of recruiting volunteers to help out in the sanctuary. And she's in charge of coming up with different fundraisers and getting that stuff all together. The fifth question that was asked is, what is social work to you? And she said that pretty much social work is her life. Like, simply, it's just her life. It's a way of living, all the way from the different tools that are needed to the different philosophies, because you can definitely use your personal philosophies in social work. So for her, she works in ministry because she's big in God and Christianity, and so that's why she has worked in different ministries and churches and whatnot. The sixth question that was asked was, what makes a difference between a skilled and unskilled social worker? And she pretty much said that an unskilled social worker could destroy an agency and can ruin a lot, and especially ruin reputations. But mainly, an unskilled social worker can make a client worse. You know, an unskilled social worker will do more harm than good. And then with a skilled social worker can help turn on the light bulb for someone. You know, help someone understand something and like have it click in their head, like, oh, like I get it, you know. It can just fully change their life and be very productive for the client. The seventh question that was asked is, do you believe that there are good and bad social workers? And she just flat out said yes, like 100%. She thinks that there are good and bad social workers, and that kind of connects back to the skilled and unskilled social workers. The eighth question is, if you were trying to convince me to become a social worker, what would you want them to know? And she pretty much just said she didn't really try to convince, she didn't want to convince anyone to become a social worker, because her thing is, you really need to be sure that it's something that you really want to do, because, it's not just a job. It's so much more than just a job. Don't take a job in social work just because you need a job. Take it because there's the passion there, because you want to be a social worker, because you want to help people. And especially be sure of who you want to work with, like the type of people you want to work with, because obviously in social work, there are so many different people that you can work with. But her main thing was just love what you do. Don't go into something just because you need a job. Absolutely love what you do. And lastly, the ninth question was, how do you practice self-care? And how she practices self-care is she leaves town to go visit friends, because where she, here in Shreveport, she doesn't have many friends, adult friends. She just has her grandkids. And so visiting friends and being around friends really helps her stay in the good self-care and good-minded area. So yeah, thank you so much.